So I just made a video about the death of Gene Wilder and how it connected to the Nebraska Cornhuskers, also connected to Teddy Bridgewater, connected to Colin Kaepernick not standing during the national anthem. It's even connected to the death of Dwayne Wade's cousin. There's all of these interrelated stories that are going on in the news right now. So in this video, I just want to talk more about the Teddy Bridgewater injury and how that is connected into all of it. I didn't go quite as in depth as I will in this video as I have in the other videos. I've talked about how Teddy Bridgewater is connected to the Nebraska Cornhuskers and also to LSU through the death of the punter of Nebraska, Sam Foltz. Sam Foltz died in a car accident, and a Michigan State player died as well. And then the player who survived was the player from LSU, Colby Delahousse. I also talked about last year how on November 7th, Nebraska upset Michigan State, so the two players who died, Nebraska upset them the same weekend that Teddy Bridgewater got knocked out or whatever by the Rams player. And Teddy Bridgewater is from Miami. The player who knocked him out from Miami. Also, LSU got their first loss of the season on that day last year to Alabama. And all of the Miami stuff connects back to the 1971 National Football Championship when Nebraska beat LSU 12-17. Anyway, now we get the torn ACL of Teddy Bridgewater, and it literally happens just before they play the Rams in the preseason. So he gets knocked out against the Rams, then he tears his ACL just before the Rams, and I'll explain why that's significant in a second. I mean, it really does even connect to the death of Lawrence Phillips. Lawrence Phillips, the former Nebraska player who became a Ram, also played a few games with the Miami Dolphins. Lawrence Phillips also played with the San Francisco 49ers. Supposedly, he's the reason that Steve Young had to retire. Think about the 49ers quarterback with Colin Kaepernick. Anyway, the reason that's even more significant is because on January 12th, Obama gave his final State of the Union address. The very next day, the same day that Lawrence Phillips died, Obama gave a speech in Omaha, Nebraska at Baxter Arena, which is on the UNO campus. UNO is connected to Nebraska Cornhuskers because they're part of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln system or whatever. Then the very next day, Obama went to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now think about all of the Baton Rouge stuff in the news. In Minnesota, on July 6th, we got the story of Alton Sterling's death, also the story of Philando Castile's death. July 6th was also the day that Dwayne Wade signed with the Chicago Bulls. July 6th is also Nebraska Cornhuskers coach Mike Riley's birthday. And, of course, Baton Rouge, where LSU plays and whatnot. When Obama went there, he gave a speech at McKinley High School. When you think of McKinley, William McKinley, the assassinated president. And the same day we got the story of Alton Sterling, we got the story of Philando Castile in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. Falcon Heights, Minnesota is famous for Teddy Roosevelt giving a speech about carrying the big stick. Teddy Roosevelt was William McKinley's vice president, so he became the president when William McKinley was assassinated. And Teddy Roosevelt gave this speech about carrying the big stick there just days before William McKinley was assassinated, or he was shot, whatever. And if you look up Baton Rouge, where it got its name from the red stick marking the hunting boundaries of the Huma people, which is just interesting. It's named after the red stick. Teddy Roosevelt gives the speech about the big stick. Anyway, all of these places have a connection in Gematria, which I'll leave a link in the description to show you what I'm talking about in regards to the numbers that I'm showing. So, you know, Prince died in Minnesota. Prince equals 38. Louisiana equals 38. Minnesota equals 38. Omaha equals 38. And, I mean, you see how they're all interrelated in regards to Obama's visit and whatnot. But anyway, let's move on. I just wanted to point out a little bit of the backstory of why Teddy Bridgewater is connected to Nebraska and all of these other stories that are in the news. The reason Dwayne Wade is connected is because Dwayne Wade went to a Nebraska Cornhusker game last year with his wife Gabrielle Union that's super connected to the Mormons, connected to all kinds of stuff that's going on with this story as well. Also, when you think back, remember last year we got the Bridgewater shooting that killed Allison Parker and the other news guy or whatever? But the anniversary of that was the same day that Dwayne Wade's cousin was killed. It was also the same day that Colin Kaepernick didn't stand during the national anthem. And I knew this news story was going to come back up in the coding, especially to Teddy Bridgewater and whatnot. That shooting happened on the 238th day of the year. In the stories about Alton Sterling, they made sure to let us know that Baton Rouge has a population of 238,000 people. They shortened up the Philando Castile video to 2 minutes and 38 seconds. I even talked about how Obama came to Omaha 238 days after the shooting or the death of Omaha police officer Kerry Orozco. And then, of course, out of all of it, Louisiana got the Blue Lives Matter bill. So anyway, though, I just wanted to point out the date of Kaepernick not standing and then Dwayne Wade's cousin supposedly dying connects back to the Bridgewater shooting, and then Teddy Bridgewater just days later supposedly tears his ACL. And there is just this huge connection in regards to all of this. So Sam Foltz, the Nebraska punter who died, in Gematria his name equals 112. He even was born on January 21st, which can be written as 21/1, a lot like the reverse 112. He died 211 days after the Foster Farms Bowl that Nebraska played in last year against UCLA. And the Foster Farms Bowl was played in Levi's Stadium, where the 49ers play, where Super Bowl 50 was held. But anyway, Sam Foltz, 112. Dwayne Wade now plays for the Chicago Bulls. Chicago Bulls equals 112. If you write out Bridgewater, it equals 112. Nebraska's going into its 112th season this year. Also, another thing, before I move on, in regards to Kaepernick and Bridgewater, I noticed last night when I was watching the game or whatever, I didn't really watch it, I just was looking at the Gamecast or whatever, I noticed that Christian Ponder is a backup quarterback to Colin Kaepernick. Now, Christian Ponder literally used to be the starting Minnesota Vikings quarterback until Bridgewater came there. And I mean, what do you know? His name in Gematria, his full name, Christian Andrew Ponder, 112. Also the big way, 238. Even his wife, let's see here, his wife's name, Samantha St. Clair Ponder, equals 112. And the reason I bring that up is because she's best known for replacing Erin Andrews on ESPN or whatever, College Game Day. They even get married in Hudson, Wisconsin. That equals 71. Nebraska equals 71. Kaepernick sits against Green Bay. Sam Foltz dies in Wisconsin. Dwayne Wade went to college in Milwaukee. Colin Kaepernick is from Milwaukee. LSU even plays Wisconsin tomorrow, the first game of the season. And also, you know, a lot of their stuff was connected to Pope Francis. Remember, another big event that happened last year in 2015 was the Philadelphia train wreck that was connected to Pope Francis's visit. The train wreck happened at 9:23 p.m. Pope Francis came to America on his 923rd day as Pope. The very next day, he went to the White House at 9:23 a.m. on 9/23. There was lots of connections to that Philadelphia train wreck, but that Philadelphia train wreck also happened to have 238 passengers. Anyway, Christian Ponder and his wife just so happened to got married on December 17th, 2012, which was Pope Francis's 76th birthday. Think about the Alton Sterling stuff and Dwayne Wade and 7-6. I mean, there's a few other connections in here as well, but I'm going to move on. Maybe I'll just make a separate video on that. I just wanted to point out the connection. Well, I guess here's another 76. So, in regards to Teddy Roosevelt giving that speech about the big stick, and then think Teddy Bridgewater, right? He used the African proverb, speak softly and carry a big stick. African proverb in Gematria equals 76 as well. If you write out speak softly and carry a big stick, it equals 116. Dwayne Wade's cousin, Nikia Aldridge, equals 116. African American equals 116. William McKinley was shot on September 6th, the day that leaves 116 days in the year. McKinley was even shot by this guy, Leon, however you say his name there. His full name in Gematria equals 219, just like Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where Obama gave the speech at McKinley High School. Moving on then, in regards to Teddy Bridgewater, one of the main things, like I said, he was connected to Nebraska and Michigan State. That's when he got hurt against the Rams that same weekend. That game was on November 7th, a lot like 117 when you read it as a date. In the Dwayne Wade video, which I'll leave a link in the description, I talked about how 117 is super significant right now. Dwayne Wade even born on January 17th, that you write 1/17, a lot like 117. He went to the Nebraska game last year on 9/5, the day that leaves 117 days in the year. Even Colin Kaepernick, they compared him to Muhammad Ali in the CNN article. Muhammad Ali was born on January 17th. He died of Parkinson's disease. That equals 117. The first tweet that they showed about that was also at 117. Now we get Teddy Bridgewater tearing his ACL. If you write out the real thing for ACL, equals 117. He's a quarterback, that equals 117. And think about it in regards to Moses, right? Moses and the ram, he got mad about the golden calf. It was the age of Aries, Aries the ram. Anyway, Nebraska Cornhuskers also connected to Moses for the fact that their stadium is Memorial Stadium, but they all wear red, right? So they call it the Sea of Red. Think about Moses parting the Red Sea. And Gematria, Moses equals 71. The 10 Commandments equals 71. Nebraska equals 71. And once again, the 49ers play in Levi's Stadium, and that's where Nebraska played their bowl game last year. Moses is in the tribe of Levi. And think about it in regards to the Civil War racial type theme there is. Lincoln, Nebraska, Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln freed the slaves just like Moses freed the slaves. Also in regards to 117, Nebraska is going into their 117th season being called the Cornhuskers. Actually, I wrote this wrong up here. This is actually supposed to be LSU is going into its 112th season. But it's all connected to the 1971 Orange Bowl, which, by the way, Orange Bowl equals 112 in Gematria. The 1971 Super Bowl, the Colts beat the Cowboys, and they beat them in the Orange Bowl in Miami, right? Dwayne Wade played for Miami before going to the Chicago Bulls. Also, I've been mentioning how William McKinley was assassinated in Buffalo at the World's Fair, and Buffalo Bills in Gematria equals 117 as well. I also talked about the death of Kyle Callaway, who was the former Buffalo Bill / Iowa Hawkeye. I talked about Richie Incognito, the former Husker, who plays for Buffalo right now. He was bullying Jonathan Martin. Jonathan Martin, the last time he played in the NFL, he wore number 71 for the San Francisco 49ers. In the last video, I mentioned how Gene Wilder's death is even connected to David Huddleston, the Big Lebowski actor. And in my Big Lebowski video, I talked about how they're always showing us how they go to the grocery store Ralph's. And that movie, he even signs the check on 9/11 of 1991. And I talked about how John Goodman, who's also in that movie, he's also King Ralph, the movie that came out in 1991. And in 1991, the Buffalo Bills went to the Super Bowl and lost to the New York Giants. It was the first time they lost all them in a row. The owner, though, was Ralph Wilson. But in regards to Minnesota and Bridgewater, the Minnesota Twins also won the World Series that year. I also mentioned how there's a big Native American theme in regards to the Buffalo Bills, and also, I'll leave a link to the Kyle Callaway video. They're coding it to the area that I live in as well, And he died in Vail, Arizona. Vail, Iowa is really close to Yellow Smoke. Yellow Smoke Park, though, is actually in Denison, Iowa. And that's where Brandon Scherf is from. He was the former Iowa Hawkeye player who's now a Washington Redskin. Yellow Smoke was the last keeper of the sacred pole of the Omaha Indians, and the town that I live in supposedly killed him, and then they were going to kill the whole town, and the Freemasons came out and saved the town from being wiped out by the Indians. Even when Colin Kaepernick sat down, or whatever, they were playing Green Bay. Their lead receiver was Geronimo Allison. I talked about how he caught the game-winning pass against Nebraska last year. He played for Illinois. Geronimo, the Indian or Native American, was the one who Prescott Bush and the other Skull and Bones members stole the bones of. And then, of course, Baton Rouge, named after the Houma people's red stick. If you read out Native Americans, it equals 64. Just like Falcon Heights, where Teddy Roosevelt gave the famous speech about the big stick. Also 64, a number super associated with civil rights. Civil rights equals 64. The Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. It was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson, who equals 64. He died at the age of 64. He was the president right after JFK. JFK became the president age 46. His wife died at the age of 64. Barack Hussein Obama equals 64. Joe Biden equals 64. I mean, it's super fitting for all these civil rights, racial stuff that we've been pounded with in the news. But, like I said, I'll leave a link to that. It's not so much necessarily directly connected to Teddy Bridgewater with all the Native American stuff, but there's definitely something going on with it. And they were showing me the Minnesota Twins winning the 1991 World Series. And then, of course, he plays for the Minnesota Vikings. Bridgewater then also gets hurt 2 months, 11 days before his 24th birthday. And remember, I said Sam Foltz was born on 21/1. He died 211 days after his final game in Levi Stadium. He also died 1 month, 12 days before Nebraska's first game this season. Also, in regards to Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, if you write out Louisiana and Minnesota together in Gematria, they equal 211. Also, they equal 76 the small way. And think about the days that we got them stories. Also, 2 months, 11 days is 72 days. William McKinley in Gematria equals 72. He was the 25th president. Just reminds me a lot of Super Bowl 51 being on February 5th, 2/5. Teddy Bridgewater even gets hurt 159 days before the Super Bowl. Just reminds me of the stuff I talked about in regards to Gene Wilder and how his death was connected to all of this as well. His real name equals 159. The movie that Dwayne Wade's wife is in of his nephews is called Constellation, that equals 159. Bridgewater's injury also comes 38 days after the death of Sam Foltz and Mike Sadler. Minnesota 38, Prince 38, McKinley 38, Louisiana 38, Omaha 38. And in regards to Prince, a lot of stuff has been connected to Prince, who died in Minnesota. And, in regards to Omaha and that as well, I also talked about Lil Wayne having to emergency land in Omaha. Lil Wayne was leaving Wisconsin, and he had to emergency land in Omaha on his way to Los Angeles. A lot like the story of how Prince had to emergency land just days before his death. If you write out Lil Wayne, it equals 38 in Gematria. But anyway, if you go from the death of Prince on Queen Elizabeth's 90th birthday to the day Bridgewater gets hurt, a span of 131 days. Super interesting in regards to Teddy Roosevelt. Roosevelt equals 131. Championship equals 131. Super Bowl equals 131. I've also talked about a lot about the royal family stuff. But Prince Charles, who will become the new king if Queen Elizabeth dies, his name equals 131. He was born on 11/14. And if you write out Native Americans in Jewish Gematria, it equals 1,114, a lot like Prince Charles's birthday. If you go from the day that Teddy Bridgewater got injured to Prince Charles's birthday, a span of 76 days. The day that he got hurt, August 30th, equals 71 in Gematria, just like Nebraska. McKinley died of gangrene from being shot. Gangrene equals 71. And I don't know why I wrote it in here off topic, but the day that he got injured has a date numerology of 54. And last year when he got hurt, right, the same weekend as the Michigan State lost to Nebraska on November 8th, that also equals 54. So both times during the Rams and just before the Rams, he gets hurt on a date numerology of 54, which reminds me of baseball because baseball equals 54. Major League Baseball began in the year 71, 5 months and 4 days. The first game was on 5/4, and then 5 months and 4 days later was the Great Chicago Fire. Just connecting it back to Dwayne Wade, going back to the Chicago Bulls. This year will be the 145th anniversary of that. Chicago, Illinois equals 145 in Gematria. Also, the World Series begins on October 25th. That has a date numerology of 71. It's also the day that the 71st NBA season begins this year. And in regards to baseball, for some reason I was thinking about the Teddy Roosevelt bobblehead that they have at the Washington Nationals games. They have the race, I think it's in the 4th inning or something like that. But a big joke for the longest time was that literally Teddy Roosevelt wouldn't win the race, and they had a little campaign, Let Teddy Win, and he finally did in 2012. Anyway, the Washington Nationals used to also be connected to the Minnesota Twins and also the Texas Rangers. The Washington Nationals now, they're the team that was connected to the Montreal Expos, which is interesting because when you think about the Expos and William McKinley dying at the World's Fair, the Expo, Teddy Roosevelt gives his famous speech at the State Fair. I mean, all part of the programming, all part of the sick joke. The Expos even played in Olympic Stadium that was built for the 76 Olympics. And, it was named after Expo 67. Expo 67 World's Fair. The Mir 67, 76. They play in Olympic Stadium that was for the 76 Olympics. I mean, come on. And then we just had the 16 Olympics. Just really makes me wonder, And as I was scrolling down through the Washington National stuff, one of the things I noticed, they have Jackie Robinson right here, and they talk about how they retired his number. The whole league did in 1997, so just interesting they would only have him listed here. But, Jackie Robinson, think about it. Jackie Robinson, all about the Civil War type stuff that's in the news right now. Jackie Robinson even died in Stamford, Connecticut, where Gene Wilder died. And, look at it. Look at his middle name. Jack Roosevelt Robinson. He was even actually named after Teddy Roosevelt. That's where he got his middle name. He got his middle name because he was born 25 days after Teddy Roosevelt died in 1919. And think about the 25 in regards to William McKinley being assassinated, the 25th president, the Super Bowl coming up on 2/5. He was even born on January 31st, 131. Roosevelt equals 131. Super Bowl equals 131. He dies at the age of 53. Remember, Nebraska equals 53. And I talked about how Gene Wilder is connected to Nebraska as well. He even broke the color barrier. I don't know what's going on there, but he broke the color barrier. And his team won 5-3. The Dodgers won 5-3. Just pretty interesting. 1919 as well, the year that he was born and the year that Teddy Roosevelt died. That was a really big year for Chicago. They had the Black Sox scandal. There was a race riot. There was also the first major aviation crash. If you write out Jackie Robinson in Gematria, go figure, 64, fitting for the civil rights. Also, the big way, 145, just like Chicago, Illinois, just like Iowa Hawkeyes, where Gene Wilder went to college. I wrote in turquoise in here too because turquoise is somehow connected to the Native American theme. Also, turquoise was the big color that they kept using in the Alton Sterling Philando Castile interviews and pictures and whatnot. Turquoise was a very big color. Turquoise equals 145. Jackie Robinson also played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Brooklyn Dodgers equals 76, fitting for all of the stuff that's going on. Even better is that he went to UCLA. UCLA is really big in the coding that I've been talking about with Nebraska. It goes clear back to the NBA All-Star Week of 2015, where the Teen Wolves, Zach LaVine and Andrew Wiggins won the Rising Star Challenge MVP. Zach LaVine won the Slam Dunk Contest. He did the Michael Jordan Space Jam dunk. Then Russell Westbrook won the All-Star Game MVP. Russell Westbrook went to UCLA. Zach LaVine went to UCLA. Andrew Wiggins traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Kevin Love. Kevin Love went to UCLA. If you watch the movie Teen Wolf, there's all kinds of Nebraska Cornhusker stuff in the background. They even have the Civil War themed play. The movie's not set or filmed in Nebraska, so it doesn't make that much sense to have it. But then last year, Nebraska somehow had a terrible season, and somehow they got a bowl game at the Foster Farms Bowl at Levi's Stadium against UCLA, who they beat. Nebraska became 6-7 on the season. And remember, Bo Pelini got fired at Nebraska after having 67 wins. Dwayne Wade's wife, Gabrielle Union, also went to Nebraska and UCLA. UCLA also fitting because they're the Bruins, the Bear. There's a huge Bear theme. Last year, the Super Bowl coded to the 85 Bears from Chicago. I mean, lots of other stuff, even connected to the movie The Revenant. It was all about the bear. California really connected to it as well for the fact California equals 219 in Gematria. Baton Rouge, Louisiana equals 219 in Gematria. Last year I talked about the Nebraska Cornhuskers having a bad season because of the death of Dean Jones, the actor in the movie Herbie. He died on 9/1, but he died 219 days after his 84th birthday. But anyway, let's move on here. Jackie Robinson also dies in the year 1972. William McKinley equals 72 in Gematria. Bridgewater injured 72 days before his birthday. Jackie Robinson's wife, Rachel Robinson, equals 72. If you write out 72, it equals 76, that very special number. If you write out 72, it equals 42, like Freemason, like Jackie Robinson's number. Teddy Roosevelt, even literally the president who became president at the age of 42. Earlier in August, I made a video about the Virginia plane crash and how it connected to Teddy Roosevelt and also the Olympic basketball team and a bunch of other stuff, but the plane wreck happened at Shannon Airport, and when you look up Shannon Airport, it's not the same airport, but the main one that you can find is in, I can't remember what country, if it's in England or Scotland, or it's in one of them countries, but there was a plane crash that happened there, and it killed 83 people, but it was 42 years after Teddy Roosevelt had died, and they called it the Theodore Roosevelt, the only president to become president at age 42. And, 42 also, it's Freemason, but it's also a very big number in regards to black people. The super N-word equals 42. The Black History Month, February, the only month that equals 42 in Gematria. It has the 42nd day. It ends normally on the 59th day. The word slave equals 59, Negro equals 59, cotton picker equals 59, jigaboo equals 59, blues equals 59, Rasta equals 59. I mean, it never ends. And the reason that it ends in a leap year, it ends on the 60th day. The super N-word equals 60 the big way. So, I mean, come on now. Roosevelt, though, so he even became president 43 days before his 43rd birthday. If you write out the word 42, it equals 43. Just lots of 42 around him. And then Jackie Robinson middle name is named after Teddy Roosevelt. Then he wears the number 42. Teddy Roosevelt also connected to Nebraska. He died 71 days after his 60th birthday. Nebraska equals 71. Lincoln, Nebraska equals 60. And what did I just say about the super N-word equaling 60? Also, in Jewish Gematria, Teddy equals 513. I just find that interesting. If you've watched my copyright claims videos, they were showing me this number a whole lot. YouTube was even copyright striking my old videos, showing me the date of May 13th. Even when Obama did the whole Snapchat turning into a demon thing, whatever he said added up to 513. So just interesting that Teddy would equal that. Another thing in regards to football and Teddy Roosevelt, I found this article on CNN about how Teddy Roosevelt saved football, basically by having the idea to spread it out, make it not so much like rugby and throw passes and whatnot. So whatever, you know. It even came out on 2/5/2012, makes me think of William McKinley. But I just wanted to point it out, you know, because they even talk about if Super Bowl Sunday is a day, blah, 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 you should thank Teddy Roosevelt. And remember, Roosevelt equals 131, just like Super Bowl. There's a whole lot of other stuff that is connected to this story. I might finish it in this video and make it really long. I haven't decided yet. We'll see how it smooths through or whatever, you know, but a lot of people have even talked about how Teddy Bridgewater reminds them of the bridge collapse that happened in Minneapolis. And, you know I covered this before in regards to the Bridgewater shooting, so I'm not going to go in depth with it. I think, it was like, it happened on August 1st, and it fell like 81 feet or something like that. There was a whole bunch of 81 in the story. But what I want to talk about with this story, in regards to bridges just in general, and all of the connections that I've been talking about, even like Christian Ponder, he plays for the San Francisco 49ers now, and the Colin Kaepernick stuff, the Golden Gate Bridge that's in San Francisco. Ponder in Jewish Gematria equals 239, just like Golden Gate, just like Torah. And in the Torah, they talk about the Jews believe that the Messiah will return through the Golden Gate. And last year, of course, was the 239th year of the United States. Pope Francis's big visit was on 23/9. Just makes me wonder what they might have brought back, you know what I'm saying? Pope Francis even connected to San Francisco. San Francisco equals 122. Pope Francis equals 122. They're both named after St. Francis of Assisi, the guy who was the first to receive the stigmata. Also in regards to Kaepernick then not standing, and Geronimo Allison was the player who had the most receiving yards. Geronimo Allison also went to Iowa Western, that was in Council Bluffs, Iowa, that's famous for being the starting point of the Mormon Trail. The game that Dwayne Wade and his wife went to of Nebraska was against BYU, the big Mormon school. And Council Bluffs, Iowa, pretty much like a suburb of Omaha, just right across the river. Not necessarily, but you get what I'm saying. Omaha has the Mormon Bridge, which is interesting because the place where this bridge was built was also a famous stopping point for the Mormons, hence the name the Mormon Bridge. It was called Winter Quarters. Gotta love how it says the last to pay the toll on April 21st, 79, when the second bridge was built, was the president of the Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. Just funny, April 21st, 421. The Book of Mormon believes that, or it's based off of the writings of prophets until the year 421 AD. Remember, Rome was founded on 421, Queen Elizabeth born on 421, also the day Prince died. So anyway, we got the Mormon Bridge, we got the Minnesota Bridge. Last year, during the Bridgewater shooting, I talked a whole lot about how it says Franklin County Bridgewater Plaza, but if you read it down, it says Franklin Bridge. And they even talk about Pennsylvania. It was the crash of Justin Wilson, who died in the NASCAR race. Just so happens the Brian Clausen guy, who died in Lincoln, Nebraska, earlier in August, he also raced with the number 88 car with the same company who got their first win by this guy who died in this crash right here. Anyway, like I said, if you read it down, Franklin Bridge, right? The Ben Franklin Bridge that's in Philadelphia. I've talked a whole lot about Philadelphia foreshadowing. Philadelphia comes from the book of Revelation. It just makes me really wonder if there's going to be some type of bridge collapse this year, if it's going to be one of these bridges. You know, this guy even fits the civil rights stuff. Remember, the shooting happened at 6:46. He died 6 hours, 46 minutes later. His name equals 145 in Gematria, just like Chicago, Illinois. And of course, he went to San Francisco State University, so he's from San Francisco and whatnot. And in regards to Philadelphia, it still connects back because of Chip Kelly, the former Philadelphia Eagles coach, going to coach in San Francisco. And remember, Chip Kelly replaced Andy Reid, who was the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. And then Andy Reid's coach, or his assistant coach or whatever, at the Kansas City Chiefs, he's now the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. If you write out Philadelphia Eagles in Gematria, Philadelphia Eagles equals 150, just like Green Bay Packers, just like Lincoln, Nebraska. But think about it even further. So you have Alex Smith, who is the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he left San Francisco because of Colin Kaepernick. Or, you know, basically, Alex Smith went to Utah, Utah and the Mormons. Andy Reid, the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, he went to BYU, the Mormon school. Remember, the Book of Mormon has 239 chapters, reminding us of Golden Gate. And the Chiefs also play in the Sea of Red, just like Nebraska. Once again, connecting back to the Moses theme with Levi's Stadium and the San Francisco 49ers. Chip Kelly, the 49ers coach now, also, remember when he was with the Eagles, he got accused of being a racist after he traded LaShawn McCoy to the Bills. I mean, I'm telling you, it's absolutely, my head is about ready to explode because it's so interrelated, interconnected. There's so many connections to all of it. If you've been following what I'm saying, I'm sure you will understand it. Otherwise, I'm sure whoever's watching this is probably going to go, what in the hell is he talking about, you know? But, I mean, I'm telling you, there's something going on with the bridges. I've been talking about that forever, how I think there's something big connected to the Ben Franklin Bridge in Philadelphia and how it might possibly collapse, you know? And that was from last year in regards to the Bridgewater stuff, but now all the Bridgewater stuff is coming back up in the news. I think I'm going to end this video here. I'm going to try to make some shorter videos, and I'll just make a playlist and put all of these together. But, I mean, it's just absolutely so ridiculous and interrelated. I mean, Les Miles even shares a birthday with Teddy Bridgewater. And then, of course, LSU plays Wisconsin in Lambeau Field, where the Packers play on their first game tomorrow. The last time that Colin Kaepernick knelt to protest, another guy joined him, Eric Reid. Eric Reid, of course, went to LSU. He's from Baton Rouge. He wears number 35. Nebraska equals 35. He plays for the 49ers. His name in Gematria, 53 and 71, just like Nebraska. But yeah, I'm going to end this one here. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next videos. I mean, this is just all... It's all completely rigged by the Masons. Absolutely unbelievable how it's done. And I guarantee you that, Teddy Bridgewater isn't even really hurt. Anyway, have a good one.